There comes a time in every person's life when love feels like a battlefield. When we chase what doesn't want to be caught, give to those who only take, and shrink ourselves to fit into someone else's story. We call it love, but deep down, it's often a cry for validation. Yet the truth is simple and profound. You will never attract the love you truly deserve until you love yourself enough. Real love doesn't begin when someone else sees your worth. It begins when you do, when you stop begging to be chosen, when you stop compromising your peace just to be noticed. Something changes. You stop searching for completion in others and begin radiating wholeness from within. And that, right there, is the energy that draws in the right person effortlessly. Today, let's go deep into this transformation and uncover 5 truths about how loving yourself changes the way love finds you. When you finally learn to love yourself, you stop settling for fragments because you begin to recognize your own wholeness. For so long, many of us are conditioned to accept almost loved, almost chosen, almost respected, and we convince ourselves that these fragments are enough. But they never are. When you are hungry for love, even crumbs feel like a banquet. You tell yourself that something is better than nothing, that half effort is still effort, and that inconsistency means mystery. You rationalize the pain because you think it's part of love's price. Yet deep within, you know that love should not hurt like that. The day you love yourself enough, you no longer call pain passion. You stop mistaking neglect for strength. You no longer carry the burden of proving your worth to those who only see a fraction of it. When self-love takes root, it shifts your entire standard for connection. You begin to understand that being alone is not the same as being unloved. You stop chasing after those who only show up when it's convenient for them. You stop explaining why you deserve basic respect. You stop giving infinite chances to people who treat you as an option. Because once you see yourself clearly, once you understand what peace feels like, chaos no longer attracts you. You can finally distinguish between love that nourishes and love that drains. And this clarity becomes your greatest protection. There's a woman who once shared her story. She spent years in a relationship where she was always the one trying harder. She'd write long messages, plan surprises, and compromise her own dreams just to make the other person stay. Every time he pulled away, she thought, if I just love him more, he'll see my worth. But that moment never came. When the relationship finally ended, she was devastated, not because she lost him, but because she realized she had lost herself along the way. For months, she avoided the mirror. Then slowly, through therapy, prayer, and journaling, she began to rebuild. She rediscovered her laughter, her confidence, her independence, and when love came around again, she didn't have to chase it. It met her where she was, whole, healed, and unapologetically herself. This is what happens when you stop settling for fragments. You stop chasing closure from those who never cared to give it. You stop trying to earn love from those who were never capable of giving it. You stop carrying the illusion that you have to shrink yourself to fit into someone's narrow vision of affection. Real love doesn't demand your silence or sacrifice your identity. It doesn't leave you guessing where you stand. It doesn't make you compete for its attention. When you know you deserve the whole, you stop confusing intensity with intimacy. You understand that love doesn't need to burn you to be real. It can be calm, steady, and safe. You no longer crave the high of emotional roller coasters because you've found serenity in your own self-worth. You learn that peace is not boring. It's sacred. The quiet consistency of genuine love begins to feel more powerful than the chaos of temporary excitement. It's not arrogance to know your value. It's wisdom. You can love others deeply and still refuse to accept less than you deserve. That balance between compassion and self-respect is what self-love creates. It teaches you that you can forgive someone without welcoming them back. You can wish them healing without offering them another chance to wound you. You can let go without hate, because your peace has become more important than your desire to be chosen by the wrong person. In this new state of awareness, your energy changes. You start showing up differently. You speak with quiet confidence. You no longer chase validation because you've built it within. You walk away from half-love without bitterness, because you finally understand that almost love is not love at all. And people feel that the world responds to the way you treat yourself, when you carry yourself with dignity, when you honor your heart instead of betraying it for attention. You attract people who do the same. It's almost as if the universe mirrors your self-worth back to you. Once you stop entertaining fragments, the wrong people fade naturally. You don't have to force them out. They simply no longer resonate with your frequency. And the right ones, the ones capable of giving what you've always given, start finding their way to you. That's the quiet magic of self-respect. It rearranges your entire reality without you having to beg or prove. So, when you love yourself enough, you stop chasing after broken things. You realize you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. You begin to see that you are not hard to love. You were just trying to be loved by people who didn't know how. And in that realization, something liberating happens. You no longer feel the need to earn love by suffering for it. You start to believe with unwavering certainty that you are worthy of love that doesn't confuse you, love that doesn't leave you guessing, and love that doesn't come in pieces. You stop settling for fragments because you finally remember. You were never made to live on less than the whole. Everything in life is a mirror. The relationships we attract, the people who enter and exit our lives, even the way others treat us, all of it reflects something we believe about ourselves. When you truly love yourself, your reflection changes, and so does the kind of love you draw toward you. You no longer attract people who mirror your wounds. You begin to attract those who mirror your healing. This is not mystical. It's psychological, emotional, and deeply spiritual. You become a magnet for what you already are. Think about it. Someone who doubts their worth will subconsciously accept partners who confirm that doubt. They'll tolerate neglect, inconsistency, or emotional distance. Because on some level it feels familiar. The mind seeks familiarity, not fulfillment. But when you heal, you change the internal blueprint of what feels normal. When self-respect becomes your new baseline, relationships built on disrespect no longer feel comfortable, they feel wrong. That's the shift. You no longer chase love that costs you your peace. There's a universal law that says like attracts like. It's not about pretending to be positive, it's about the energy you carry in truth. If you radiate fear, insecurity, or scarcity, you'll draw in people who match that vibration. Those who feed off chaos, confusion, or emotional instability. But when you cultivate calm confidence, when you hold yourself with quiet assurance, your presence alone filters out those who can't meet you there. Real self-love is not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is, and its energy speaks before your words ever do. Imagine someone who has spent years chasing validation, always trying to prove their worth through relationships. They say yes to every connection, even when it drains them. They mistake attention for love and flattery for depth. The pattern repeats. Excitement, disappointment, heartbreak. Eventually, they reach exhaustion and begin to turn inward. They start journaling, meditating, maybe seeing a therapist. They learn to sit with their loneliness instead of running from it. Over time, they become comfortable in their own presence. Their laughter returns, not because someone made them happy, but because they found joy again in being alive. And that's when the pattern shifts. The next person they meet treats them with respect, not because the world suddenly changed, but because they did. You attract what you reflect. It's not luck, it's alignment. When you operate from wholeness, you attract wholeness. When you move from need, you attract lack. Every relationship becomes a mirror, showing you what you still believe about love and about yourself. If you keep attracting emotionally unavailable people, perhaps part of you is still emotionally unavailable to yourself. If you find people who constantly undervalue you, maybe you've been undervaluing your own voice, your own needs, your own boundaries. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. The moment you see the pattern, you gain the power to change it. This concept is echoed in countless fields, from psychology to quantum physics. Carl Jung, one of the founders of humanistic psychology, once said, "What I am is good enough if I would only be it openly." That authenticity, that acceptance of self creates an energy field around you that communicates confidence and safety. People respond to that energy, they sense it before they even understand it. When you're genuine, when you stand in your truth, You naturally attract people who are drawn to honesty rather than illusion.
There's a quiet beauty in reaching a place where your energy becomes your protection.
You no longer have to overanalyze intentions or fear abandonment.
You trust that what's meant for you will feel right and stay.
You stop chasing and start receiving. You start noticing that the right people feel peaceful, not unpredictable. They don't drain your energy, they match it. They don't trigger your insecurities, they respect your wholeness. The transformation begins inside, often in silence. You start to notice how you speak to yourself, how you treat your body, how you handle disappointment. When your inner dialogue shifts from self-criticism to compassion, your entire world begins to shift with it. The same person who once said, "I'll never find the right one," begins to say, "I am becoming the right one." And that simple change of perspective transforms everything, because the energy of someone who knows their worth is undeniable. It's magnetic. We often underestimate how much others read our energy. People can sense desperation even when you smile. They can feel insecurity even when you pretend to be confident. But they can also feel genuine peace, real self-assurance, and quiet strength. When you're rooted in who you are, you give off an energy that says, "I am whole, I am open, and I am ready. But I am not waiting to be completed." That's what draws in a partner who meets you as an equal instead of a savior. The truth is, your relationships will always mirror your level of self-awareness. If you are carrying unresolved pain, life will send people to trigger it, not to punish you, but to help you see it. When you heal those parts, you no longer need those lessons, and the reflections change. Suddenly, love feels easier. You don't have to fight for it. You don't have to convince anyone. You simply live in alignment with your truth, and the people who belong to that frequency naturally find their way into your life. You attract what you reflect, always. When you embody peace, you draw in calm souls. When you embody authenticity, you draw in honesty. When you embody self-love, you draw in love that mirrors it back. And when you finally become the kind of person who gives themselves the love they once begged others for, the right person doesn't just appear by chance, they appear by resonance. Many people confuse loneliness with love. They think that being in the presence of someone else automatically fills the emptiness they feel inside. But this is a dangerous misconception. Loneliness is not love. It is a signal, a call from within that something essential is missing, something that only you can provide for yourself. When we fail to recognize this, we make decisions from fear instead of clarity, settling for people who do not nurture us, merely to avoid the quiet. We rush into relationships, chase attention, and cling to connection, believing that love is the antidote to being alone. But this only perpetuates the cycle of dissatisfaction, heartbreak, and disillusionment. Being alone can feel terrifying at first. It forces you to confront yourself in ways that society often discourages. You sit in silence, and suddenly the thoughts you've avoided about your past wounds, your fears, your desires, become impossible to ignore. Most people instinctively run from this discomfort, reaching for the nearest relationship or distraction. Yet true self-love begins when you stop running. Solitude is not a punishment, it is a teacher. It is in these moments of quiet reflection that you discover who you really are, what you truly value, and how much strength you carry within yourself. Imagine someone who has always jumped from relationship to relationship. They fear the emptiness of being alone so intensely that they overlook red flags and ignore their own needs just to be in someone's orbit. The pattern repeats endlessly: short-lived relationships, fleeting happiness, and the constant ache of unfulfilled expectations. One day they finally decide to stop seeking love externally and turn inward. They begin to nurture themselves, to explore passions, to cultivate joy independent of others. They learn to enjoy their own company, and what they discover is remarkable. When you are comfortable alone, the right love no longer feels like a rescue mission. It feels like a complement to the life you already enjoy. Loneliness is often mistaken for love because both can stir deep emotions. Love makes your heart expand, yes, but loneliness makes it ache. The key difference lies in intention and alignment. Love seeks connection and growth. Loneliness seeks distraction and escape. When you confuse the two, You may find yourself constantly giving more than you receive, excusing behavior that undermines your self-worth, or staying in relationships that deplete you rather than nourish you. But when you learn to sit with your own heart, to face the discomfort of being alone, you start to recognize that love should feel safe, supportive, and energizing, not exhausting and uncertain. Consider the metaphor of a cup. Loneliness is like a cup that is empty and unstable, easily tipped over by external forces. Love is a cup that is full, balanced, and steady, able to share what it contains without fear of losing it. If your cup is empty, you will desperately seek someone else's cup to fill it. But no matter how much you pour in, it will never be enough, because the foundation is missing. The moment you fill your own cup with self-respect, confidence, and joy, the love you attract is no longer desperate or conditional. It is abundant and reciprocal. Many people also fail to realize that solitude is the training ground for discernment. It teaches you the difference between someone who truly complements your life and someone who simply fills a void. The lessons you learn alone are invaluable: patience, self-awareness, and the ability to recognize authentic connection when it finally appears. Solitude sharpens your perception, allowing you to avoid the pitfalls of relationships that are based on need rather than genuine affection. It transforms the way you experience intimacy, helping you understand that true love is not about possession or dependence. It is about mutual growth and respect. Loneliness is temporary. Love is enduring. When you stop confusing the two, you begin to see the patterns in your relationships with clarity. You stop tolerating people who drain your energy or disrespect your boundaries. You stop clinging to attention that feels fleeting, and instead, wait for connection that feels steady. You start valuing quality over quantity. You understand that being alone is not a failure, but a vital step in becoming whole enough to attract the right person. This transformation is subtle but profound. You begin to notice the difference between the excitement of someone new and the peace of someone who aligns with your life. You start to value emotional safety over temporary thrills. You realize that the ache you once feared, the silence, the space, the stillness, is not emptiness, but preparation. It is a sacred period in which you build the foundation of self-love, self-trust, and inner completeness. Once you embrace solitude and learn to distinguish it from love, your relationships change naturally. You no longer chase someone to fill a void. Instead, you meet people from a place of fullness. You attract connections that enhance your life rather than distract from it. And perhaps, most importantly, you discover that the deepest, most transformative love begins with yourself. By learning to be at peace alone, you prepare the heart to give and receive love without fear, without compromise, and without confusion. Loneliness is a teacher disguised as discomfort. When you stop confusing it with love, you reclaim your power, your clarity, and your freedom. You step into a life where love is no longer a need but a choice, a reflection of the self-respect, wholeness, and joy you have cultivated within. And in that space, the right person does not need to be forced into your life. They are drawn to the energy you now naturally radiate. When you begin to love yourself, one of the most profound transformations is the ability to set boundaries without guilt. For many people, boundaries feel uncomfortable, even selfish. We are taught from an early age that saying no may disappoint someone else, that prioritizing our own needs is greedy, or that standing up for ourselves will make us unloved. So we compromise, overextend, and silently resent. We allow our energy to be drained, our time to be stolen, and our hearts to be taken for granted, all because we believe love requires sacrifice at the cost of our own well-being. Yet, the truth is that boundaries are not only an act of self-respect, they are the very foundation of healthy love. When you love yourself, boundaries become a form of protection rather than punishment. They are the invisible lines that communicate to the world. This is who I am. This is what I deserve. This is what I will not compromise. Without them, relationships can easily become unbalanced, with one person giving endlessly while the other takes without consideration. But with clear boundaries, you create a space where mutual respect, honesty, and understanding can flourish. You no longer fear that protecting your peace will cause someone to leave. Instead, you recognize that those who truly belong in your life will respect your limits and even admire your courage to uphold them. Many people share stories of the heavy weight they carried before learning to enforce boundaries. There's the friend who was always available for everyone's emergencies, while neglecting their own needs. They said yes to every favor, every call, every request, believing that being indispensable was proof of their love and worth. Over time, they felt depleted, exhausted, and unnoticed. But the moment they decided to say no, firmly, kindly, without apology, they felt an immediate sense of liberation. The relationships that were meant to endure adjusted, while the ones that relied on manipulation or one-sided dependence naturally fell away. That experience, though initially uncomfortable, became a profound lesson. Your worth is not determined by how much you give, but by the integrity with which you honor yourself. Setting boundaries without guilt is not an act of defiance, it is an act of alignment. When you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what energizes you. When you refuse to tolerate disrespect, you open the door for respect. Boundaries teach others how to treat you and remind you of your own power. They are not walls to keep people out, but filters to ensure that the connections you maintain are healthy, reciprocal, and nurturing. Consider a professional example. Someone who has been overworked and undervalued at their job. For years, they accepted impossible deadlines, extra responsibilities, and disrespectful treatment because they feared confrontation or loss of approval. But when they began to assert themselves, communicate their limits clearly, and decline what was unreasonable, the dynamic shifted. Not only did their stress decrease, but their colleagues and supervisors began to treat them with more consideration and respect. Boundaries, in this sense, are not just about personal relationships. They affect every area of life, including work, family, and friendships. Boundaries also reshape the way we experience love romantically. People who do not enforce boundaries often attract partners who exploit flexibility, take advantage of generosity, or create constant tension. They confuse compromise with surrender. But when boundaries are established, a remarkable change occurs. The right partners respond with respect and care. They understand that love is not about control or dominance, but about mutual understanding and honor. You no longer accept chaos or manipulation. You attract steadiness, consistency, and authenticity. It is important to remember that guilt is often the first response when boundaries are introduced. This is normal because setting limits challenges old patterns of people-pleasing and fear of rejection. But guilt is a signal, not a verdict. It indicates that you are growing beyond old conditioning and embracing a healthier way of living. The more you practice boundaries, the more natural they become, and the less guilt you feel. You begin to internalize that protecting your energy is an act of love, not just for yourself, but for those around you. People can only give what they have, and by maintaining your own well-being, you are in a better position to give authentically, generously, and sustainably. Boundaries are also a mirror of self-awareness. They require you to know what you value, what you need, and what you will tolerate. The process of defining them can be enlightening. You discover where your patience ends, where your compassion begins, and how to navigate relationships with integrity. This clarity not only improves your interactions, but deepens your connection with yourself. You stop seeking external validation because your internal compass guides you. When you love yourself, setting boundaries without guilt becomes a natural, empowering act. It allows you to live authentically, engage fully, and love deeply without losing yourself in the process. You begin to recognize that healthy relationships are built not on constant sacrifice, but on mutual respect and alignment. By honoring your own limits, you give others permission to honor them as well, and in doing so, you attract connections that are worthy of your energy, your time, and your heart. In this way, boundaries become not just a protective measure, but a magnet for the love and respect you truly deserve. When you truly love yourself, one of the most transformative realizations you come to is that love is not about possession, it is about partnership. For many, love has been presented as something to be acquired, controlled, or held onto at all costs. Society tells us that the person who loves us the most is the one who stays closest, checks in most frequently, or sacrifices endlessly. We are taught to measure love in ownership. I am theirs, they are mine, as if affection and commitment are commodities rather than shared experiences. Yet the deeper truth, which only emerges through self-love, is that real love thrives in freedom, respect, and mutual growth. Possessive love is born from fear, fear of being abandoned, fear of not being enough, fear that love is scarce. When we cling to someone as if they are an object to secure, we unknowingly diminish both ourselves and them. We mistake control for care, jealousy for passion, and dependency for intimacy. In such relationships, love becomes a transaction. You prove your loyalty, they prove their affection, and both parties are trapped in a cycle of insecurity. The energy is exhausting, unsustainable, and ultimately unfulfilling. Self-love changes everything because it removes the fear at the core of possession. When you know your worth, you no longer need someone else to define it for you. You realize that your happiness, fulfillment, and peace are your own responsibility, not someone else's. In turn, the relationships you form are no longer based on desperation or scarcity. You don't cling, you connect, you don't demand constant reassurance. You communicate clearly and confidently. You don't try to own another person. You invite them to grow alongside you. Consider a story of a couple who had been together for years, but whose love was suffocating. One partner was controlling, monitoring the other's interactions, questioning friendships, and trying to dictate choices. At first, this behavior was disguised as care or commitment, but over time it eroded trust, intimacy, and joy. Eventually, through reflection and personal growth, both partners began to understand that love should not be about domination but collaboration. They learned to release control, to respect each other's individuality, and to create space for each other's dreams. The relationship didn't weaken, it strengthened. They discovered that freedom within love fosters trust, deep connection, and lasting intimacy. Partnership, unlike possession, requires equality. It is the meeting of two complete individuals who choose to share their lives rather than fill a void in each other. It is not about dependence but about complementarity. Each person brings their own passions, strengths, and boundaries, creating a dynamic in which both can flourish. When one partner succeeds, the other celebrates without envy. When one struggles, the other supports without judgment. Partnership is an exchange of energy, respect, and love that nourishes rather than confines. In self-love, you also recognize that people are not obligations. They are companions on a journey. You cannot force someone to love you, nor should you try to mold them into the version of yourself that feels safe or familiar. True love emerges when both people are free to be fully themselves, when two whole people come together. The relationship becomes a space for exploration, growth, and mutual inspiration. You begin to see that love is not about possession, because nothing that is real can be forced, bound, or coerced. It is freely given, freely received, and freely nurtured. This understanding transforms not only romantic relationships, but all human connections. Friendships, family bonds, and professional relationships all flourish when rooted in respect for autonomy and individuality. You learn to collaborate rather than compete, to support rather than control, to communicate rather than manipulate. The energy you bring into the relationship changes, and as a result, the quality of the connection transforms. Self-love also teaches patience. When you are at peace with yourself, you don't rush to cling to someone for fear of losing them. You allow love to unfold naturally, without forcing proximity or imposing timelines. You understand that the right person will align with your life, not because of coercion, but because of resonance. This patience creates depth, stability, and authenticity in relationships that possessive love can never achieve. Ultimately, realizing that love is about partnership rather than possession is liberating. It allows you to fully embrace intimacy without fear. You can hold someone close without gripping them, care deeply without controlling, and commit wholeheartedly without sacrificing your autonomy. Love becomes a dance rather than a battle, a mutual journey rather than a one-sided struggle. When self-love guides your relationships, possession falls away and partnership takes its place. You no longer seek someone to complete you because you are already whole. Instead, you seek someone to complement your life, to grow with you, and to share in the joy, challenges, and beauty of existence. In this way, love becomes not a cage, but a shared space of freedom, respect, and profound connection, an enduring reflection of the love you have cultivated for yourself. As we reach the end of this journey together, it is important to remember the truth at the heart of love. It begins within. The love you seek will never arrive from the outside until you have fully embraced it inside yourself. When you choose to honor your worth, protect your peace, and celebrate your wholeness, you create a magnetic energy that draws the right person effortlessly into your life. You no longer chase what cannot be caught. You no longer settle for fragments or confusion. You stop confusing loneliness with love. You set boundaries without guilt, and you understand that real love is not about possession, but about partnership. Every step you take towards self-love strengthens the foundation of the relationships you deserve, creating space for connection that is reciprocal, joyful, and life-affirming. Remember, the journey of loving yourself is not selfish, it is essential. It is the key to attracting love that reflects your strength, your peace, and your authenticity. The right person does not complete you, they complement you. They arrive naturally, drawn to the fullness of who you have become. So choose today to honor yourself, to cherish your own heart, and to embrace the beauty of being whole. In doing so, you will discover that the greatest love story of all begins not with someone else, but with you. And when you love yourself enough, the right person, the right connection, and the love you've always deserved will follow.